Night had fallen over the city, and inside the ICU, everything was cloaked in quiet hums and sterile white light. Dr. Elias moved down the long corridor, his coat slightly wrinkled, stethoscope hanging loose around his neck. The hospital had long grown used to his silent determination, his refusal to rest. He stopped at room 604. Victoria Arsenyeva lay motionless on the hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped rhythmically, each one confirming she was still alive, even if her mind wasn't with them. Her face, once the image of luxury magazines and business news, was now pale, framed by tubes and sensors. She looked fragile, nothing like the powerful billionaire the world once knew. Elias stepped in quietly, his steps measured. He didn't speak. He never did when he entered, not until he was sure they were alone. Tonight was no different. He pulled on fresh gloves and opened a sterile pack. The bandage on her left forearm had to be changed. Her skin had developed irritation under the gauze, and infection couldn't be risked. As he peeled back the old dressing, he paused. There, just a flicker. A subtle twitch beneath the skin. So slight it could have been anything. A muscle reflex. A trick of the light. Fatigue. But something in his gut told him it wasn't. He leaned closer. His eyes studied her eyelids, her lips, her fingers. Nothing. Stillness again. Silence. And yet, his heartbeat quickened. He took a breath. Deep, steady. Victoria, he whispered, the sound barely above a breeze. If you can hear me, just blink. Nothing. A second passed. 2. Then, impossibly, her right eyelid moved. Once. Soft. Gentle. A blink, or something trying to be. He stared in disbelief. Time froze. He took a step back. No way, he murmured to himself. Was that real? He moved closer again, kneeling beside the bed. Victoria, blink again if you hear me. And there it was, another flutter. Slower, more controlled. Elias jumped to his feet, adrenaline surging. He grabbed the emergency intercom and pressed it hard. This is Dr. Elias in ICU room 604. Patient Arsenyeva is responding. I repeat, she is responding. Even as he spoke, his hand reached for hers, warm and gentle. He squeezed lightly. Her lips trembled, and then, a sound. A breath. A voice, so faint it was barely a whisper. Where am I? The question hit him like lightning. She was waking up. Not just physically, truly waking up. Elias stared at her, speechless, overwhelmed with emotion. No one had believed this moment would ever come. Not the neurologists. Not the family. Not the board of directors. But he had. He leaned forward again, voice thick with awe. You're in the hospital, he said softly. You were in an accident. But you're safe now. You're not alone anymore. Her brow furrowed slightly, as if trying to remember. Then a tear slid from the corner of her eye. Elias didn't move. In that moment, with machines humming, monitors blinking, and the city fast asleep, the impossible had begun. The woman the world thought was lost was finding her way back. And it all started, with a single blink. The hospital corridors pulsed with nervous energy. Word had spread like wildfire. Victoria Arsenyeva, the comatose billionaire, had opened her eyes. Nurses whispered in awe. Specialists flooded into the ICU. Her personal neurologist, flown in from Switzerland just days earlier to prepare for end-of-life decisions, stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. Security had been tightened. Media vans had already started gathering outside the hospital gates. This wasn't just news, it was a miracle the world would be talking about by morning. Inside room 604, the lighting had been dimmed, the noise reduced. Victoria was now propped up slightly, breathing steadily without assistance. She looked weak, pale, fragile, and yet, there was something sharp returning to her eyes. A flicker of the formidable woman she once was. But she seemed distracted, distant. Is everything all right, ma'am? Asked one of the attending nurses gently. Victoria blinked slowly, then turned her head just a fraction. I want to speak to the doctor, she said, her voice rasping. The one who was here, before. Dr. Elias? The nurse asked, surprised. She nodded. Yes, him. Alone. The room cleared. Even the top neurologist hesitated for a moment, clearly annoyed at being dismissed, but left without a word. Moments later, Elias entered. He stood in the doorway, his heart thudding. Her eyes found him immediately. Tired eyes, yes, but focused, aware. Hello, Victoria, he said softly. She gestured weakly toward the chair beside her bed. He approached, sat, folded his hands nervously. For the first time in his career, he wasn't sure what to say. She studied him for a long, silent moment. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but sharp. You spoke to me, when no one else did. Elias gave a small nod. I hoped you could hear. Even if it was just a whisper. They all acted like I was already gone, she murmured, eyes drifting to the window. Like I was just a shell. A name on a chart. I didn't believe that, he said, his voice steady now. I saw you, not just the monitors or the scans. You were still here. I felt it. She looked back at him, her expression unreadable. A long silence followed. Finally, she smiled, just a little. "You're either the most foolish doctor in this hospital," she said slowly, "or the bravest." "Maybe both," he replied, a faint smile tugging at his own lips. She turned serious again. "You don't know what it's like. Trapped, lost, everything dark. Then suddenly, your voice. Like light breaking through. It was the only thing that kept me from slipping away." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He looked down, blinking back the emotion. "Thank you," she said. "Not for saving my life, but for remembering I had one." Elias couldn't speak. His chest felt tight, his hands trembling slightly. A knock interrupted them. A hospital administrator peeked in, holding a clipboard, already talking about press conferences and private transport. But Victoria raised her hand. "Later," she said firmly. "Close the door." The administrator obeyed, stunned. She turned back to Elias. "What's your full name, doctor?" He hesitated. "Elias Monroe." She nodded, repeating it silently. "I don't forget names," she said. "Especially not the ones that matter." That night, as Elias walked out of the hospital into the cool night air, a gentle breeze touched his face. His phone vibrated again, more missed calls, breaking headlines: "Young doctor brings Victoria Arsenyeva back from the brink." He didn't care about the fame. He didn't care about the noise. Because somewhere inside that hospital, a woman who had once ruled empires remembered his voice, not his title, not his background, not even his resume, just him. And that was enough. 3 weeks had passed. Victoria Arsenyeva was no longer confined to the ICU. Now, she resided in the hospital's exclusive recovery wing, a sleek, private suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. The woman who had hovered between life and death had returned with surprising strength. Daily therapy, careful medication, and an unshakable will had transformed her from fragile to focused. And through it all, Elias visited quietly. Sometimes to check her vitals. Sometimes to adjust medication. But most often, just to talk. She welcomed him each time, her eyes lighting up slightly when he entered, something she tried not to show, but Elias noticed. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the room, she motioned to a chair and said, "Sit. I have something to show you." He obeyed, curious. She picked up a leather folder from the side table and handed it to him. Inside was a printed letter, formal, marked with the Arsenyeva Foundation seal. Elias read slowly. "Effective immediately, Dr. Elias Monroe is offered the position of Director of Neuroempathic Recovery Research, a new division personally funded by Ms. Victoria Arsenyeva. The goal, to study and validate human connection as a medical variable in comatose and near-vegetative patients." He blinked, then looked up. What is this?" She smiled gently. "It's your belief, Elias. The one no textbook teaches. I want the world to see it matters. But I'm just a general physician. I'm not even published. This is." "You brought me back," she interrupted, voice unwavering. "Not just my pulse. Me. Do you think I'm investing millions because I owe you? No, I'm investing because I believe you're right." He was stunned. Words failed him. "I've been given a second chance," she continued. "So I'm giving one too. Take it. Build something that can't be ignored." Elias stared at the letter again, then at her. A woman who once ruled from boardrooms, now offering him something far greater than a title, trust. He nodded slowly. "Then I'll do it. For every patient still unheard. For every voice buried in silence." She extended her hand. He took it, this time not as doctor and patient, but as equals. Outside, the world kept turning. But inside that quiet room, something had shifted, not just careers or medical protocols, but hearts. 6 months later, the Elias Monroe Research Center for Consciousness and Empathic Recovery opened its doors under international spotlight. Housed inside a wing of the newly renovated Arsenyeva Medical Institute, the facility was unlike any other, blending cutting-edge neurology with a revolutionary principle: human presence as healing force. Journalists called it controversial. Some scientists dismissed it as wishful sentimentality wrapped in white coats. But Elias didn't flinch, because in a private room on the top floor, every day he saw the truth. Victoria Arsenyeva, fully recovered, now walked without aid, read, held meetings, and even laughed again. Her mind had returned sharper than ever. And the bond between her and Elias had quietly grown deeper, not romantic, not labeled, but profound. They had walked through darkness together. They didn't speak of it often, they didn't need to. One rainy evening, Elias stood outside the center, watching the clouds roll over the city skyline. His coat was damp, but he didn't care. He was thinking of one of their newest patients, a 12-year-old boy in a coma after a bike accident. Today, for the first time, his hand twitched when his mother sang to him. A nurse approached from behind. "Dr. Monroe, you might want to come upstairs. Is something wrong?" he asked quickly. "No, but Ms. Arsenyeva asked for you. She said to bring your notebook." He hurried up the stairs, heart pounding. When he entered her suite, Victoria was standing by the window, her figure framed by the rain outside. She turned, smiled faintly. "I remembered something," she said. "From the coma." He froze. "You did." She nodded. Her voice grew quieter. "It wasn't all black. There was sound. Then, warmth. I couldn't move, but I felt safe. Like someone was holding me in the middle of a storm." Elias felt his throat tighten. "It was your voice," she whispered. "I didn't know your name then. But I knew your presence." Silence fell between them, heavy, electric. "I think that matters more than we understand," she continued, turning back to the rain. "Science isn't the enemy of the soul. But it must stop pretending the soul doesn't exist." Elias stepped beside her. "We're proving it," he said gently. "Patient by patient." She looked at him, not the billionaire, not the legend. Just a woman who had once been lost, and found again. "I was dead to the world," she said. "But one voice called me back. I wonder, how many others are still waiting to hear theirs?" That night, Elias walked back through the research wing. He passed silent rooms, soft beeping monitors, and family members clutching hope like a fragile flower. He stopped at the boys' room. The mother sat there, singing quietly, her fingers brushing her son's arm. Elias didn't speak. He simply stood outside, watching. Because sometimes, silence isn't absence. It's presence. And sometimes, that's what saves a life.